So we'll go through each sentence
Okay.
and see what Sridhar is saying. Okay. So we've got another 2 minutes more, but if everybody has come, we can start. Um, and anyway, Tarika is recording the thing, so we can start. So shall I read each sentence? Okay.
Yes, do that, Ranganath.
The individual soul or the conscious being in a form may identify itself with this experiencing Purusha or with this active Prakriti. Let's try and understand this sentence. Also note Srindu's use of or. Okay? He is very fond of the word or. Even in poetry, even in Savitri, he uses or all the time. You wouldn't expect that. So, the individual soul is a small portion of the universal soul, which you can say God. Our individual soul is a Jivatman, and the Jivatman essentially it is divine but in a limited form. Okay, the divine soul, or Surendra use the word over soul, or you can use the word God in a very unphilosophical manner. You can say God because in philosophy you don't use the word God. Okay, so you use the word the principle of Satchidananda. So the individual soul, or he is also using the words conscious being. Okay, our body mind life is not really conscious. Okay, so this conscious, this psychic being and the self is conscious being in a form. Now what's that form? Our form is the body mind life. Okay, that's a form. So the conscious soul in the form, okay, when it comes down and the normal human being may identify itself with this experiencing Purusha. The experiencing Purusha, Pallavi, good morning. So, experiencing Purusha is the self in the mind usually. Okay? So he is experiencing all this. So the being the individual, the Jivatman can identify itself with the self, then you are an enlightened person, or you can identify yourself with your active Prakriti, which is body, mind, life. 90% of the time, we are all identified only with our Prakriti, which is our body, mind, life. We feel that this is me, our body, our vital, and our mind. The more developed you are, the or rather, let me put it this way: the less developed you will think that you are the body. The slightly more developed if you will identify yourself more with the vital. The vital is more important than the physical. That's what you feel. There's a whole philosophy for that. Elan Vital of Henri Bergson. Okay. Then there is the other one which is even more that I am really not even body, not even the the I am not even the vital. I am not my emotions. I am mind. Okay, that's a Cartesian formula. I think, therefore I am. And finally, Srirendo comes in and says, "You are neither body, nor life, nor mind. You are pure soul." So, the soul in us, the psychic being or the self, can experience itself. It can station itself above the mind in the experiencing Purusha, or it can identify itself with the active Prakriti, body, mind, life. 90% of the time, we are identified with our active Prakriti. Now, Srirendo is making the distinction between the two. If it identifies itself with Prakriti, it is not master, not enjoyer, not knower. We are slaves, not master. We don't know that we are slaves. We think that we are quite in control of ourselves, but we are not. It is nature that is controlling us. Universal nature, just as it is controlling the tree, okay, and the lower animals, it is also controlling man. But man, because he has an ego, he thinks that he is doing everything. So when you are identified with your body, mind, life, you are not master, nor enjoyer, nor knower. That Yasmin, you asked a question, how can I know? The answer very clearly Sridhar is giving you, you cannot know. You are not the knower. Okay? You can know only when you identify yourself with the Purusha, the self. But reflects the modes and workings of Prakriti. Yeah. Reflects, it's like a mirror. The self is a mirror, and when it thinks that it is body, mind, life, It's only reflecting. You think that you are the body, mind, life. It's only a reflection in the self. Okay. This is a very interesting image. You'll have to think a little deep about it. Okay. You are you are not the body, mind, life, but you think you are because it's only a reflection. It's not the truth at all. It enters by its identification into that subjection and mechanical working which is characteristic of her. So, all Prakriti works very, very mechanically at the physical level. It works also mechanically, but slightly less mechanically and less complicated manner in the, more complicated manner in the vital, and in the mental, it becomes even more complex. But yet it is mechanical, and we are subject to that mechanical inert working of nature. Okay, that's what I'm saying. And even by entire immersion in Prakriti, this soul becomes inconscient or subconscious, asleep in her forms as in the earth and the metal, and almost asleep as in plant life. So there is a consciousness thing that I sent you. He is making the distinction. First of all, it's in the earth. It seems to be absolutely asleep. It doesn't even exist, consciousness. And the metal, or almost asleep as in the plant life, because you can see some sort of movement in a plant life. It also responds to the environment in a certain sense. At night, the leaves close. In the daytime, they open. The same thing with the lily. If you touch the mimosa plant, it reacts. So there is some sort of consciousness, beginning of consciousness, but almost asleep. So there are the grades. He has given you 3 grades: earth, metal, and plant life. And matter is absolutely as in the earth. There, in that inconscience, at this level, Siddhartha is talking of the universal consciousness. Okay? There, in that inconscience, it is subject to the domination of tamas, the principle of darkness and the principle of uh, non-understanding, unconsciousness. The principle, the power and qualitative mode of obscurity and inertia. This is the tamas. We often say, when we say man is very tamasic, what we mean is very lazy. He does not move much. But remember one important thing: everything in the physical world is not negative. It's got the negative and positive qualities we are attributing to it. But even tamas has got a huge role to play in the physical world. What is that role? The stability of forms, okay, the unwillingness to change. Otherwise, if all forms go on changing, then you will have a lot of difficulty in recognizing people and recognizing things. So, the principle of tamas is very important for the stability, seeming stability of the physical world. Nothing is really stable eternally in the physical world, but seeming stability. A stone's stability lasts much longer, and a man's stability lasts only for a few days because they go on changing with age. And a butterfly stability is only for 1 week. Okay? So, but it is relative. So, this tamas is important, but not in a psychological manner. It's the mode of obscurity and inertia. Sattva and rajas are there, but they are concealed in the thick coating of tamas. Okay. Sattva is the principle of harmony, light, understanding, consciousness. Rajas is the principle of energy, movement, okay, power, force, action, okay, are there. In matter, they are hidden. They are there, but they are concealed in the thick coating of tamas, emerging into its own proper nature of consciousness, but not yet truly conscious, because there is still too great a domination of tamas in the nature. The embodied being, he is using very 3 words: embodied being, which includes all beings, beginning from even insects to larger animals to man. The embodied being becomes more and more subject to rajas. So when rajas comes up, obviously it is life. Okay, the principle of life. So all animals are subject to tamas and rajas mainly. In the higher animals, even sattva starts coming in to a certain extent. The principle, the power, the qualitative mode of action action and passion, impelled by desire and instinct. It is desire and instinct that make you move. So desire is very necessary in the beginning, but it binds you down. So you have to get rid of it if you want to do yoga. If you don't want to do yoga, it's very important to have desire, because that is what will achieve. You will be an achiever in the physical world. Okay, so you can see all these things which seem negative in yoga all have a purpose. Okay. There is then formed and developed the animal nature, narrow in consciousness, rudimentary in intelligence, rajaso tamasic in vital habit and impulse. The description is very, very clear. In the animal nature, narrow in consciousness. That's exactly what I meant by senses are very limited. Okay, narrow in consciousness, rudimentary in intelligence. Intelligence is not developed as in man. Okay. Rajaso tamasic in vital habit and impulse. Emerging yet farther from the great in consciousness towards the spiritual status, the embodied being liberates sattva. When man comes into the picture, sattva is liberated, the mode of light, and acquires a relative freedom and mastery and knowledge, and with it a qualified and conditioned sense of inner satisfaction and happiness. Sattva gives you inner satisfaction and happiness. You start understanding things. But still it is relative freedom, it's not a full freedom at all. Man, now he comes to man. So he spoke about matter, he spoke about animals, now he is speaking about man. Man, the mental being, in a physical body, should be, but is not, except in a few, among this multitude of ensouled bodies of this nature. Now note very carefully this sentence. He has said that right in the beginning, in the first, second sentence also he has told that there are three things which are the evolved, which is the bodily life, the still evolving, which is the mental life, and that which is to be evolved, which is the spiritual life. So the still evolving is the mental being, and very clearly he is imperfect. Should be, but is not, except in a few among this multitude of ensouled bodies of this nature. So, ordinarily, he has too much in him of the obscure earth inertia, the normal man, too much of earth inertia, and troubled, ignorant animal life force. So the physical and the vital are the most important to him. He is too much of this to be a soul of light and bliss, and even a mind of harmonious will and knowledge. He has used the word even. So a mind of harmonious will and knowledge is a man who is very awakened in his consciousness, okay, and in mind, but he may not be a soul of light. He may not be a spiritual person. Okay. Very intelligent people are of this nature, but very intelligent people can be very materialistic also. He may not be a soul of light. So there is here in man an incomplete and still hampered and baffled ascension towards the true character of the Purusha. Now the Purusha is the self, and the description is very clear. He is free. He is not bound to his body, mind, life. He is completely free. He becomes the master. He becomes the knower and the enjoyer. These words, Sudhir is constantly saying, you become free first from the prison of body, mind, life. Then you start slowly understanding that you can master your lower nature, and then you start understanding. You can't become master unless you know what your enemy is. So you have to understand that, knower and enjoyer. Finally, you become the enjoyer. Everything in life becomes enjoyment. Even those things which you found not to be very enjoyable, now you start enjoying. Okay? So this is a gradation. Free, master, knower and enjoyer. And free is the self. Okay? Master, knower is jnata. Okay? And enjoyer is bhokta. Okay? And free is sakshi. You are the witness. You are master. And master is Ishwar. These are the words used in the Gita. So you can slowly, as you keep rising from the self, you can become all these things. For these, yeah, any question?
Yes, Ranganath, fast after knowing or you and then know?
Pardon?
faster after knowing or before?
Maybe there's okay. Uh,
Fast.
your voice is not coming through clearly. I think it's Pallavi who spoke.
Yes. Yes,
Now
Gangada.
tell me what you said.
No, you become master after knowing or before knowing?
No, no, no. Only after knowing. Master is the last. There becomes the Ishvara consciousness. You really can't become master. You start becoming master, but the real mastery is only at the third level, the supramental level. He has used the words not necessarily in that order. Okay. Yeah, it's a question. Good question. But when you become free and master, you also become the full knower and the full enjoyer. Okay. For these are in human experience relative modes.
Oh,
And follow. Okay, now, okay, so mm, for these are in human and earthly experience relative modes, none giving its single and absolute fruit. All are intermixed with each other, and there is not the pure action of any one of these anywhere. The pure action comes only at the supramental level, at the highest level. You become Ishwar. It is their confused and inconstant interaction that determines the experience of the egoistic human consciousness, swinging in nature's uncertain balance. Nature's uncertain balance, and the three that he's talking about are the sattva, rajas, tamas. They are all confused. Okay? Some people have more sattva, some people have less sattva, some people have more tamas, some people have less tamas. It's a combination of all these. But they are always there in everything. Even in matter it is there, even in the lower animals it is there, even in the higher animals it is there. But it is not there in the liberated man. The spiritual man, he is trigunatita. He is not subject to sattva, rajas, tamas. Okay? So that is the why the word free is used. So long as you are identified with your body mind life, you are imprisoned in the body. The soul is imprisoned in the body and thinks it is the body. But you become, when you go out of your body mind life, your consciousness rises out, then you are free, not imprisoned anymore, and you are trigunatita, atita. You go beyond the three gunas. Okay. That's what it said. Now we got one more small para. So shall we read that? Anyone can read?
Start from A.
Yeah,
Reading.
yeah, read it.
The sign of the immersion of the embodied soul in Prakriti is the limitation of consciousness to the ego. The vivid stamp of this limited consciousness can be seen in a constant inequality of the mind and heart, and of a confused conflict and disharmony in their varied reactions to the touches of experience. The human reactions sway perpetually between the dualities created by the soul's subjection to nature and by its often intense but narrow struggle for mastery and enjoyment, a struggle for the most part ineffective. The soul circles in an unending round of nature's alluring and distressing opposites, success and failure, good fortune and ill fortune, good and evil, sin and virtue, joy and grief, pain and pleasure. It is only when awaking from its immersion in Prakriti, it perceives its oneness with the One and its oneness with all existences, that it can become free from these things and found its right relation to this executive world nature. Then it becomes indifferent to her inferior modes, equal minded to her dualities, capable of mastery and freedom. It is seated above her as the high throne knower and witness, filled with the calm, intense, unalloyed delight of his own eternal existence. The embodied spirit continues to express its power in action, but it is no longer involved in ignorance, no longer bound by its works. Its actions have no longer a consequence within it, but only a consequence outside in Prakriti. The whole movement of nature becomes to its experience a rising and falling of waves on the surface that make no difference to its own unfathomable peace, its wide delight, its vast universal equality, or its boundless God existence. There is a footnote.
Yeah, read.
It is not it is not indispensable for the Karma Yoga to accept implicitly all the philosophy of the Gita. We may regard it, if we like, as a statement of psychological experience, useful as a practical basis for the yoga. Here it is perfectly valid and in entire consonance with the high and wide experience. For this reason, I have thought it well to state it here, as far as possible in the language of modern thought, omitting all that belongs to metaphysics rather than to psychology.
Okay, so as usual, very, very terse and compressed language, and we have to undo the knots of the words and we'll understand what is it. Basically, it's very simple. He is now describing the what happens when the you are immersed in the prakriti, the embodied soul, the soul which is in the body, embodied soul, is prakriti, is a limitation of consciousness to the ego. It is when the ego is there that you are bound to the body mind life. That's what it is. The sign of the immersion of the embodied soul in Prakriti is a limitation of consciousness to the ego. The ego is that which makes you feel limited, bound to the body mind life. That's a sign. Okay. So, mind you, you may feel, there are many people who are very not at all egoistic, okay, and you feel this man is very egoistic, but it is a sattvic ego. Okay, so the ego is almost, it's not a gross physical ego where you see sometimes all these things where people are very grossly insulting of others and trying to dominate others and pushing themselves forward. That's a gross ego. Then there is a vital ego also. Okay? Then there is a sattvic ego. You may see many people who are very calm and quiet, and I'm not saying that they are not liberated, but they may not be free of ego. Okay? The ego is a very subtle thing. So the ego is there. So long as the ego is there, you are bound to your body mind life. The vivid stamp of this limited consciousness can be seen in a constant inequality of the mind and heart and a confused conflict and disharmony in their varied reactions to the touches of experience. So, it's so clear. He is telling you how to recognize you are in the ego consciousness. The moment you feel in your mind and heart that you are not reacting to everything in a calm manner, okay, some thoughts excite you, some thoughts repel you, some emotions you find good, some emotions you find bad. You are unequal in your mind and heart. When you are absolutely unmoved by any thought coming to you or any sight coming to you or any emotion entering into you, you are absolutely calm and unfazed. You are absolutely calm and quiet. Then you can say that the ego is not there. But so long as you notice in yourself different reactions, I like sweets, I don't like bitter things, you are ego bound. So simply is giving a very clear picture of how you can identify yourself. Okay? The vivid stamp of this limited consciousness can be seen, okay? Can be experienced, seen, proved in a constant inequality of the mind and heart and a confused conflict and confused conflict and disharmony in their varied reactions to the touches of experience. The touches of experience, the word used in the Gita is bahya sparsha. Okay? And that sparsha can be physical, it can be vital, emotions, or it can even be thoughts. The bahya sparsha. You are absolutely not affected by these, then you are in the consciousness where you can say that almost the ego is not there. The human reactions sway perpetually between the dualities. Now, this dualities is something that we have to understand very clearly. In the physical world, everything is dualities. Why? Because the one at the highest level, when it starts manifesting itself, it breaks itself up into the many. And the many, when they are infinite, you are bound to have opposites. If you have kindness, there is bound to be cruelty. If there is light, there is bound to be darkness. And all these are principles which exist in the physical world and are equally valid in the physical world. Okay? So that's what the duality is. So long as the ego is there, you are also bound to your duality. Another sign by you can identify your own egoistic consciousness created by the soul's subjection to nature. Nature with an N cap, okay? But your body mind life is a part of universal nature. It's an individual nature, but it's part of that. And by its often intense but narrow struggle for mastery and enjoyment. And so long as you have these, you are subject to the dualities, naturally you try to control because you don't want to suffer. So when you don't want to suffer, you try and control this thing. You try for mastery and enjoyment. You don't want pain, you want only enjoyment. But it's since the description is very clear. Often intense, but narrow. Okay? Struggle. No real mastery. A struggle for the most part ineffective. For the most part. 90% of the time, maybe you will not succeed much. It keeps coming back again and again. The soul circles in an unending round of nature's alluring and distressing opposites. This is something that is a very important principle. You will go on moving only in the circles of desire. Okay? This is a very interesting thing I can tell you. Some people tell me, once somebody told me, I have no desires now, but I've got only one desire for a certain thing, let us say sweets or perfumes. Okay. If you say that, can you say that you've got rid of desire? Definitely not, because today it is perfumes or sweets and tomorrow it will be something else. Okay, it will change because you are constantly moving in the field of physical and vital sensations. So that is very clear. So they are saying the soul circles in an unending round in nature's alluring and distressing opposites. Success and failure, good fortune, ill fortune, good and evil, sin and virtue, joy and grief, pain and pleasure. He has listed so many dualities. It is only when awaking from its immersion in Prakriti, the soul, awaking from its immersion in Prakriti, it escapes from the prison house of body mind life. It preserves its oneness with the One. It becomes universal. Okay? It escapes from the body and becomes cosmic. And its oneness with all existences, that it can become free from these things. And you have got found and I have got find. It's very interesting because the proofreaders must have said, oh, Sirna has used the past tense. It's wrong. So they corrected it to find. But later proofreaders found that no, Sirna is found. Found is not the past tense of find. Found is the to make a foundation. Okay, so they have corrected it in the CWSA. But in my SABCL, and find its right relation. The meaning stands, but it's a totally different thing. Okay, its right relation to this executive world nature. Note, executive world nature. World nature, universal nature is executive. It is universal nature that is moving and causing all action and events in the physical world. Okay? Not you. You think that you are doing, but you are only subject to that universal executive world nature. And when that happens, then it becomes indifferent to her inferior modes. The word often used is indifference, okay? Disinterestedness. Okay? They use the word disinterestedness. But somebody asked mother, does it mean to say I should not take interest in anything? And mother said, no, it's not like that. You have to take disinterested interest. In other words, your interest should be taken, you should put your full effort, but it should not expect the result. That is what, normally when we are interested in something, we want success. But you should take interest in it without expecting a return. That's what is meant by this indifferent. Then it becomes, see how limited the words are? So you have to go behind the words to understand. Indifferent normal means, oh, it makes no difference to me. It's not like that. Okay? Then it becomes indifferent to her inferior modes, Which are the inferior modes? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, body, mind, life. Equal-minded toward dualities. You are neither swayed by good nor you are swayed by bad. Neither you are subjected to pleasant or unpleasant. This is also very clearly given in the Katha Upanishad. It says, man must realize how to make a difference between Shreyas and Prayas. Prayas is the pleasant and Shreyas is the good, the auspicious, that which is good. So we normally think that that which is pleasant is good. That may be true partly for the body, mind, life, but not for the soul. For the soul, there has to be a clear distinction between the pleasant and the good. Okay. So, then it becomes indifferent to her, equal-minded to her duality, capable of mastery and freedom. Then you become capable of mastery. You have not yet achieved mastery. Note that very carefully. You start becoming capable of mastery and freedom. It is seated above her in the high-throned knower and witness, filled with the calm, intense, unalloyed delight. Now, we'll look at this. It is seated high. It is seated above her, which is the her nature, your body, mind, life. So you feel yourself to be not identified with the body, mind, life. You are seated above. The word used in the Gita is Kutastha, seated on the summit. As a high-throned knower and witness, and filled with the calm, intense, unalloyed delight. Alloyed delight would be our pleasures. Unalloyed delight is there is no reason for it. There is no cause for it. Of its own eternal existence. The embodied spirit continues to express its powers in action. So your soul has gone out of your body, mind, life. Now this part is very interesting. Just note carefully. The embodied spirit continues to express its powers in action. You are continuing, the body, mind, life is going on acting. But it is no longer involved in ignorance. The soul is not involved in ignorance. The embodied spirit, he is talking about this individual soul, but it is not in ignorance anymore. No longer bound by its works. Its actions have no longer a consequence within. That means you are not affected by the causality, the karma, law of karma does not affect you, but only a consequence outside in nature. Now note that very carefully. The consequences for the body, mind, life continue. Okay, but you are free from it. I'll give you an example, then you'll see. Even the realized souls, because they are not at the supramental level, they are subject to the laws of karma. Note interestingly how Ramakrishna had cancer of the throat. Okay, why? Because his past lives he has accumulated karma. That karma has to exhaust itself. The soul is free, but the body, mind, life is not. The lower portion is not. Ramana Maharshi had cancer in the shoulder, okay? But it makes no difference to him at all. So, in fact, they asked him, shall we use anesthesia to remove in fact, he had 3 or 4 operations to remove the cancer in the shoulder. But he said, you do what you want, no interest at all. Niruddha's description in Sri Aurobindo case also was very interesting, because Sri Aurobindo had uremic poisoning. No? It's not meant very clearly, but in elderly men, the prostate gland goes on increasing, and then there is a problem in the urination. But he allowed that to happen because he is only a witness. He is not bothering at all. He has no will of his own. In fact, they asked him, why aren't you using your will to cure yourself? Okay. Then now, to a certain extent, they can understand. He said, can't explain, you won't understand. Okay. Because, do you have a will, individual will, or are you identified, your will is identified with the Supreme? And the Supreme says, my laws will continue to exist. So, he doesn't have a will. If he has an individual will, he says, okay, I'll cure myself. But he doesn't have an individual will. His will is the divine will. Whatever the divine is saying, he is subject to it. The soul is subject to that, the divine. Okay. So, in fact, Nirandar's description is very interesting. When the doctors are discussing what to do with his leg, he is looking to those who are talking, the doctors and all, like a little child. He's moving his face here and there and looking absolutely unaffected by anything at all. So, the whole movement of nature becomes to its experience a rising and a falling of waves on the surface that make no difference to its own unfathomable peace. And mind you, this can happen even at a very preliminary stage. I told you that I had a very, very close friend in life, and he had experience of the nirvana consciousness, the self, going through the Brahman consciousness. He himself was going through a very peculiar phase. He could not explain anything to me, but when he went to mother told him, I am very happy with you because you are in the Brahmic consciousness. And she spoke several things to him. Okay. So, and I asked him afterward, are your thoughts, do you have thoughts? Then he said, I'm talking of 40 years ago, 40, 50 years ago. He said, thoughts are there, emotions are there, but they're absolutely like ripples on the surface. They have absolutely no effect on me. So this is what Sarvabhauma is describing here. The whole movement of nature, likes and dislikes, thoughts, emotions, become to its experience a rising and a falling of waves on the surface that make no difference to its own unfathomable peace. You are absolute calm. It's wide delight. Note the word wide. Everything will give you delight. Okay? Not narrow delights as our pleasures are. Our pleasures are all narrow delights because some things we like, some things we don't like. But wide delight, everything included, can give only delight. Its vast universal equality or its boundless God existence. Now Sarvabhauma is giving the footnote, and you can see very clearly that the Gita is definitely recommending action in the physical world, but they are not talking of the supramentalization of matter. So Sarvabhauma is saying you need not subject yourself only to that. It is not indispensable for the Karma Yoga to accept implicitly all the philosophy of the Gita. Mind you, philosophy, the practice is absolutely valid. We may regard it, if we like, as a statement of psychological experience useful as a practical basis for the yoga. Here it is perfectly valid and in entire consonance with a high and wide experience. Why is Sarvabhauma saying we can go beyond the Gita? Because you want to become master of your body, mind, life also. That is possible only at the supramental level. For this reason, I have thought it well to state it here as far as possible in the language of modern thought, omitting all that belongs to metaphysics rather than to psychology. So, he's saying very clearly that the Gita is absolutely wonderful. Okay? There is absolutely no doubt about it. But you can always go beyond. There is no. I think I told you once how Dilip Kumar Roy used to always challenge him, like Vivekananda used to challenge Ramakrishna. So Dilip Kumar Roy also used to always challenge them to make fun. Maybe light-hearted fun, but anyway fun of the supramental. Okay. So he said that you are going even beyond what Sri Krishna has done. So Sarvabhauma says, if the past was the greatest, where is the question of evolution? Okay. Perfection has no end. It goes on and on and on. We have got 7-8 minutes. So it's a very small para. I think we can read that. No? So Sarvabhauma has described very clearly, when you are identified with your body, mind, life, you are in ignorance and you suffer the dualities and you are in the ego consciousness. But when the soul escapes from the body, mind, life and becomes Trigunatita, it goes beyond Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, it is free and becomes capable of mastery and witness and enjoyment and freedom. So, what are those conditions? Sarvabhauma is going to list them. So, let's quickly go through. There's just not enough time to read. It's a very small paragraph. These are the conditions.
Would you like me to read?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
These are the conditions of our effort, and they point to an ideal which can be expressed in these or in equivalent formulae. To live in God and not in the ego. To move, vastly founded not in the little egoistic consciousness, but in the consciousness of the all soul and the transcendent. To be perfectly equal in all happenings and to all beings, and to see and feel them as one with oneself and one with the divine, to feel all in oneself and all in God, to feel God in all, oneself in all, to act in God and not in the ego. And here, first, not to choose action by preference to personal needs and standards, but in obedience to the dictates of the living highest truth above us. Next, as soon as we are sufficiently founded in the spiritual consciousness, not to act any longer by a separate will or movement, but more and more to allow action to happen and develop under the impulsion and guidance of a divine will that surpasses us. And last, the supreme result to be exalted into an identity of knowledge, force, consciousness, act, joy of existence with the divine Shakti, to feel a dynamic movement, not dominated by mortal desire and vital instinct and impulse, and elusive mental free will, but luminously conceived and evolved in an immortal self delight and an infinite self knowledge. For this is the action that comes by conscious subjection and merging of the natural man into the divine self and eternal spirit. It is the spirit that forever transcends and guides this world nature.
Okay, so he has given the gradations of the soul. One by one, we'll have a look at it next time because we have only 3-4 minutes. Okay, so these are the conditions of our effort, and they point to an ideal which can be expressed in these or in equivalent formula. So, number one, to live in God and not the ego. Okay? When you live in God, the ego disappears. Next is to be perfectly equal, not to be affected by anything or any happenings, neither to things nor to events, nor to thoughts, nor to emotions, nor to actions. Third, to act in God and not the ego. So, and when this happens, finally, the last supreme result. But there are very interesting words which he has used, and so we'll look at them and see what he is saying. Okay, because when he uses a particular word, which level is he talking about? Okay. For instance, the second one, he is talking of but in the consciousness of all soul and the transcendent. So what does he mean by the all soul, and how is it different from the transcendent? So we'll have a look at this next time. Okay. I made a note, and I think Archana also made a note for CWSA. I made a note for my book. Okay, page 93. So, okay. Nice to meet everybody once again and start our classes. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Rangana. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay.
Thank you, Rangana.
Thank you.